Okay, we're good to go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Johnny. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March meeting of the Colorado Geographic Naming Advisory Board. I want to welcome everybody tonight, and let's go ahead and get started. I'll start by taking roll call of our board members. Dr. Wei.
Here.
Senator Will. It's not here. Representative Morrow.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Senator Exum. Commissioner Chimino.
Present. Good evening.
Good evening. I got your title right this time. So making some progress here. Director Redhorse. Not present. And Director Zeiler from CU Center of the American West. I believe he declined the meeting, so he won't be here tonight. And let's see, Director Morgan and Mr. Benitez are also not present tonight. And then Deputy Director Mock.
Present.
Okay. And Deputy Director Stroder. Oh,
Present. Jackie Stanton for Deputy Director Stroder.
Yes, thank you, Jackie, so much. I just saw the note, so thank you, and welcome. We're happy to have you. Director Wolf.
Present.
Present, great, welcome. And Dr. Ishiwata is unable to attend, and our last board member, Mayor Stout.
Present, thank you.
Welcome. All right.
And Madam Chair, I just point out that Director Redhorse was able to join us here.
Oh, great. Okay. Good evening, Director Redhorse.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Sorry I'm a little late.
No problem at all. We're happy that you're here. Okay. Let's see. Our next item is to review and approve the March agenda. Would somebody like to move to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Stout. A second?
Second.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Wei. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the March agenda, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, it passes. So approval of the March agenda. Next, we have the review and approval of the January minutes, the summary of the meeting. So would somebody like to make a motion to approve the January summary?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Director Mock. Second?
Second.
Sure.
Okay, we have a 3-person second. Jackie, Commissioner Chimino, and Dr. Wei. Approval of the January summary. All right. Do we have any board member updates or announcements? I'm not aware of any.
Dr. Gonzalez, if I may, I think you still needed to call for the vote on the January summary.
Oh, thank you so much. I
Sure.
appreciate that. So those in favor of approving the January summary, say aye.
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 The summary is approved. Thank you. Thank you for that intervention. Okay, so now we are at board member updates and announcements. And I don't have any. I don't know, Tim, if you have any, or Stacy, Johnny.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll provide a couple of updates here. Tim Mock, Deputy Director for the Department of Natural Resources. First, I kind of want to start out by apologizing that we've been slow to run some of the recommendations up to the governor's office. That is on me, and I take full responsibility for it. I'm embarrassed by it, but we have hired some additional staff that are particularly going to take some stuff off of my plate. Kelly Romero Feeney, who was our Assistant Director for Water, has been promoted to Deputy Policy Director for the Department of Natural Resources. She'll be leading the the policy work for the department and the executive director's office, working with the assistant directors. We will hire another assistant director for water, but her bandwidth will be directed towards, like I said, engaging on policy matters, providing some additional bandwidth, and then she will be also promoting our strategic priorities that the division set back in. We had a retreat back in October and came up with some priorities and strategic priorities that we'll be focusing on for the administration's remaining 3 years in office here. And that includes biodiversity, implementing biodiversity conservation practices to help manage and conserve our land habitats and species with contributions provided by relevant DNR divisions. Energy transition, planning for a coordinated strategic approach to support the transition to zero emissions energy, while minimizing, mitigating impact on species and habitats, and identifying, managing physical impacts of that transition, and then reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other pollution within DNR's operations. Tribal engagement, which will be led by Stacy Coleman, and that is developing a tribal relations program, cooperatively building capacity within and across DNR for consistent, meaningful tribal government to government and greater Native Indigenous community engagement. And we hope to weave that into all of our policy areas, budget, planning, program and projects, including grant funding, staff training, internal operations. Also balancing conservation and recreation, as well as climate resiliency, providing EDO leadership and coordination among divisions to align our divisions and actions to statewide energy and climate goals. And so those are some of the strategic priorities that we really will be focusing on, especially as we develop our budget requests for next year and upcoming years, as well as our legislative priorities. And that goes along with, and with some overlap in terms of water plan implementation, increasing revenues into state parks, and then balancing conservation and recreation, which have been wildly important goals set forth by the governor for our division. And that concludes my remarks. We did hire a state engineer or a director for Division of Water Resources, Jason Ullman. And also in our policy shop, we've hired a policy advisor for federal affairs, Lacey Gentry. She'll be working to coordinate the division's responses to federal planning projects and processes. And so we look forward to working with her on those endeavors. So that concludes my update. If there's any questions.
Thanks, Tim. That's all really good news. Any questions for Director Mock? Okay. Do we have any other board updates?
Yes, please, if I could.
Sure.
And Chair Gonzalez, we could do this now or wait till the end. But I was going to take tonight's meeting to see if we would do a little bit of planning for this summer's Association of Geographic Names Conference. I can't remember the title of that organization, and I may need help from Stacy or Johnny or Jenny Runyon. But it'll be in Missouri this summer, maybe September. It was September in Portland last year. And yes, do we know the date and of that conference? Anybody?
I could look it up really quickly unless Stacy knows off.
Don't know at the top of my head, unfortunately.
I apologize for questioning y'all like this on the fly, but we were able to last year to get DNR to provide some funding for some travel, and Missouri is hosting it this year. We'll get the dates shortly here, and then Colorado is still hosting it in 2025. So Colorado's hosting it then. I think it'll be an excellent opportunity for nearly all of us to participate in that national conference. And I highly recommend it. I learned a lot in Portland last year. I'll step back and let others go to Missouri this year. Unless no one's interested, then I would love to go again. And with us meeting every other month, we only have like 2 more times to really kind of plan for this. And we can always talk during email, but I just want to put that plug in there that maybe we could get a few folks to go to Missouri this year. Again, I don't know Tim Dinar's budget situation, but hopefully we could accommodate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. And I think Ms. Runyon, I see your hand up.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thanks. I don't know why my video is not working. You just got my background there. Yeah, so thank you. As far as I know, well, it is the middle week of September, and I want to look at my calendar, which would be, I believe, well, traditionally it would be Monday the 16th through the Friday the 20th. But I understand from Christine Johnson that there's a big Missouri football game that weekend, and they want us all out of town by Friday. So apparently they're moving it forward a day. I know, I just want to stay for the game, I guess. But they're moving it forward, I think, with the hopes that people can travel in on Sunday the 15th. And then the conference would start on Monday the 16th. And then we would have the toponymic tour probably on Thursday the 19th, with the idea you'd either travel home that night or next morning, I guess. So they want us out of Columbia before the game. I have not heard anything from Christine in a long, long time. I know she's been really busy with both personal and professional obligations. I would say just keep checking the COGNA website. And yeah, it's the Council of Geographic Names Authorities, or COGNA is the acronym. And I'm sure they would love to have Colorado there. And it's customary for next year's host to come and give a short presentation at the end. So someone has to be there from Colorado. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Jenny. And Johnny, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Chair Gonzalez. And thank you, Commissioner Chimino, for bringing that up for Colorado hosting in 2025. We're going to need some help setting this up. So please volunteer to help us set up for 2025. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Johnny. And Stacy, I see your hand too.
Yeah, I did want to plug for this year. I think the theme is Rails to Trails, which is pretty neat. That's a program across the entire nation on changing, old railroads into cool trails and pathways. So I think it's a pretty neat thing to be highlighting. And I hope that folks will be just as interested to learn more about that.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Thanks, Stacy. And I hope we do have some funding to send some folks. Commissioner Chimino.
I can't hold back. Rails to Trails, with all the stuff happening in Colorado, with our adding new train lines, our theme could be Trails to Rail. No, just kidding. But I'll stop now.
We certainly could. All right, that's a great announcement. So anyone else have announcements or information? All right. Well, hopefully a few of us will be able to go. It sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, let's go ahead and I'll turn it over to Ms. Coleman for your updates, please.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you, Chair Gonzalez. I will run through first some specific updates from both the Ute Mountain Ute and Southern Ute Indian tribes, and then I'll give a quick update on Lost Sheep Herder Gulch as well as Kit Carson Mountain, just so that everybody knows the roadmap there on that. First with Ute Mountain Ute tribe specific updates. On March 8th, just a few weeks ago, Director Red Horse and I gave a presentation to the Ute Mountain Ute Tribal Council at one of their scoping meetings. And this presentation was really just to provide an update on pending proposals before the CGNAB. So it focused on Roybison Draw, Lost Sheep Herder Gulch, and Kit Carson Mountain, and provide a status update on those. No specific comments or feedback were given regarding these proposals from tribal leadership at the meeting, but leadership did indicate they wanted to be kept updated, which of course we will do. We also provided an update on the newish 60-day response procedural rule that the CGNAB enacted, I think it was last November, just why it was created, and also walk through, CGNAB and CCIA's current outreach and engagement method with the tribes. And also to seek, any feedback that tribal leadership may have at this point in time on maybe additional things that we could be doing, or if it's working okay. Tribal leadership for the Ute Mountain Ute did clarify the individuals that outreach from CGNAB should be sent to, which tracked what we were doing. But we forwarded this information to our USBGN colleagues as well, so we could give them the updates too. Leadership also requested regular updates from myself and Director Redhorse to Tribal Council. So I think what we'll be focusing on are those scoping meetings and the opportunities there. Leadership did mention that they prefer in-person when possible. So, when an opportunity arises while I'm down there, I will try to provide those updates in person to the scoping at the scoping meetings. In addition, tribal leadership requested or said they prefer a 120-day response time instead of a 60-day response time for the tribe to respond to CGNAB outreach. We said we'd bring that back to the board. And they also requested a flow chart to be created of the submittal outreach procedures and provided to tribal leadership and staff, which is something that I can do and work with Director Redhorse on. And lastly, leadership noted support again to get Gore Range renamed to Nuchu Range, and would like to see that reviewed by the CGNAB. So those are the specific updates related to the Ute Mountain Ute tribe, and I'll pause there for a second for any questions or thoughts from folks. Yes.
Dr. Ma? Sorry.
Thanks, Ms. Coleman. I appreciate the update there. I'm wondering, one, if you or Catherine have thoughts about the tribe's request to extend that to 120 days. And I'm wondering if it would suffice if we were to share those as we receive the packets from the USBGN and start the clock then, or is it, when we introduce them and then, we're adding on the additional time. I think in terms of the 120 days, I get that, if we were to switch a proposal for perhaps, or have a substitute name, that might sort of extend that deadline at that time. But I'm just wondering if that is customary or something that we might be able to pursue. If we've got some proposals that have been sitting in, we're working through a backlog. If we share those and kind of, start the clock, or how that would sort of all apply. I'm just kind of looking for some professional subject matter expertise input on that.
Well, I mean, it was explained that the USBGN does outreach as well. They do their initial outreach when a new proposal is submitted. There's a 60-day timeline there. I think that probably the more specific outreach that the CGNAB does sometimes with tribes, may sort of remind tribal entities about, these particular proposals, and that they've reached a different process point within the review process, based on sort of the USBGN provides, a mass email that gets sent out, versus sort of the CGNAB's a little bit more narrower focus and outreach. I think that could certainly be something discussed with tribal leadership on whether that would be workable. Maybe some things to think about, though, are sometimes, as a proposal runs through the process of outreach, there's additional information that's acquired, whether it's through historical research that History Colorado is doing, or maybe additional information that, or alternative proposals that other entities are providing. So sometimes having a full review of the information is helpful. So it may just be something that we need to balance there on how we want to, how the board wants to sort of address that situation. I think the goal is to provide initiate as early of outreach as possible, to provide as much of a opportunity for the tribes to be able to review these proposals timely. So that, I think that's the goal, and that as we sort of refine the process over time, it'll probably, smooth out a little bit more. But Director Redhorse?
Well, thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Director Mock, for your question. I guess that specific question wasn't asked of the council, and I think that's a great question. The way I had envisioned it, however, is that the 160, or no, let me just add on days, 120-day clock starts once the proposal is introduced to the board. And I think that, right, and that's when the work starts for the board and the tribes to do the review. To Stacy's point is that, we do keep and provide updates once changes are made, or like any updates that we have from the board meetings to the tribes. And we also remind the tribes that these board meetings occur, so they can attend, as an open meeting, or ask to be on the agenda if they want to, et cetera, et cetera. So I think to Stacy's point, as we strengthen the process between the outreach and communication between the tribes and this board, that hopefully we'll learn just to expedite the process. But I think there's a compromise there, starting the day of like, you have 120 days to review. We'll consistently, keep you updated on any new information that the board reviews, et cetera, et cetera. But I did not envision that the clock restarts every time there's new information brought to that proposal either.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And Madam Chair, if I may just continue, I would just point out that right now we meet every other month. So essentially that's 60 days. And then, another meeting would be, I believe, if my math is correct, would be 120 days. Most of our proposals are not accomplished necessarily within that timeline. So, I think it's nice to have some agreement and respect the tribe's wishes. And, I think that we could probably actually accommodate that, just being, set apart 2 meetings, essentially, from when something's introduced.
Any other comments or questions about the tribe's request? So I guess I'll do, yes, go ahead, Stacy.
I guess my question was just going to be how would we proceed on this, since it is a procedural rule. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to do a process check with Attorney General Mercer.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would suggest that this be made as a revision to the board's process document. That's where we collect sort of all of our processes and go-bys, and it is a public-facing document, so everyone can be aware of what those are. I think in the past, when we've made a change to the process document, we did have a board vote to ensure that folks were in agreement on that. I don't think that's sort of strictly required under the board's bylaws, but if you'd like to continue that practice going forward, we could perhaps work on language and ask for a vote to approve or deny it, or we could, in today's meeting, get the board's vote on sort of this overall concept and direction, and get direction from the board, if that's your pleasure, to sort of go forth and draft that into the document, whatever you would prefer.
Oops, sorry. I think I'll defer to Director Mock and Ms. Coleman on the way to proceed, whether we should take a vote today or yeah, go ahead, Stacy.
I guess one other question, just for clarification purposes, is whether, this sort of a 120-day sort of response time would apply to all tribes, or just the, Ute tribe as requested. I would I would suggest for ease of process for it to apply to all tribal engagement on that piece, but wanted to at least ask that question.
Madam Chair, if I may, yeah, I think I would extend that to all federally recognized tribes as a matter of tribal sovereignty, and make sure that we're operating our bylaws equally and consistently. And I think just for the sake of efficiency to keep track of that makes sense. Madam Chair, I think based on what I understand from AG Mercer is that this is something that we will get some revised language in that process document and add it to our agenda at our next meeting and discuss and have a vote. I think we should probably notice those type of things when we take action, and so that would be most appropriate.
That sounds like a good way forward. So we'll go ahead and kind of work behind the scenes and bring it to vote during our next meeting. Thank you so much for that conversation. Okay. All right, Stacy, floor is yours again.
Yes, thank you. And just to continue here, the Southern Ute Indian tribe specific updates. Representatives for the Southern Ute Indian tribe have provided a formal response on Broybeson Draw as well as Lost Sheep Herder Gulch for those two renaming proposals, and they had no objections. So that's just sort of to close out, that pending item from our last meeting there. And additionally, while we've also requested and reached out to the executive assistant for the Southern Ute Indian tribe to request a 30-minute presentation with tribal council on CGNAB updates as well. We haven't received a response on that specific request yet, but during a recent call that I had with Director Rizzo, she is the Director of Cultural Resources for the tribe and also the point of contact for the tribe on CGNAB matters. She mentioned that they've recently revised their internal review procedures on their end, and it should be a bit more streamlined and just through their office. So we should be able to get sort of maybe a little bit of faster response times from them in the future here. So I thought that was really helpful and positive news there. I'll pause for a minute if anyone has any questions on that. Okay, moving on to Lost Sheep Herder Gulch updates. And I'm just going to go through a little bit of a reminder here for folks, especially in the public that may be new to these updates, but just that the original submission related to Dead Mexican Gulch was for Jose Velarde Gulch in terms of the renaming proposal. And that has been withdrawn by the proponent, and the proponent is instead supporting the new alternative submission for Lost Sheep Herder Gulch, submitted by the Garfield County Commission in early 2024 of this year. Let's see. At this point in time, we still need the USBGN to sort of conclude their submission, intake, publication, initial outreach processes before we sort of move forward with the Lost Sheep Herder Gulch formal review before the CGNAB. This sort of just helps ensure that the integrity of each process is maintained and just also frankly avoids confusion on overlapping processes, outreach processes. So while the USBGN has sent all 574 federally recognized tribes notices of the new submittal and provided a 60-day response time request there, with regard
Stacy, I think your video froze. Let's see, we'll just give it a second here.
Not object to the name change. At the March 8th scoping meeting for the Ute Mountain Ute Tribal Council, again, just to remind everyone, they didn't indicate any sort of feedback or or need to provide further comment on this particular proposal. They just wanted to receive updates on this as it moves forward through the process. And I guess I'll pause there for a moment. Does anybody have questions on that update? Okay, seeing none, Kit Carson Mountain updates. So in terms of tribal outreach, CGNAB staff initiated that early outreach in January with both the Ute Mountain Ute and Southern Ute on, at the time, the 4 renaming proposals that we were aware of that had been submitted to the USBGN. Those were Frustum Peak, Lawrence Peak, Tabawatch Ute Peak, and Mount Crestone. In last month, the proponent for Lawrence Peak reached out to CGNAB staff to request removal of the Lawrence Peak renaming proposal from consideration. That request was forwarded to USBGN staff for formal removal. So that particular proposal is no longer under consideration. And then because 2 of the 3 remaining renaming proposals were submitted to the USBGN after the November 2023 CGNAB meeting, the USBGN is still going through its procedural processes there when an initial submittal comes in, which includes outreach to the 574 federally recognized tribes, as well as outreach to local government. So once that process concludes, at least on the CGNAB end, we'll be able to see if any other additional enhanced outreach is needed on these additional proposals. And of course, then the CGNA process to formally introduce those proposals will likely happen. Public comments continue to still be received on the renaming proposals for Kit Carson Mountain. All of that information is being, added to the public informational packet for the appropriate renaming proposals, including additional information that's submitted by proponents in support of their proposals. Any questions there? Oh, yep. Commissioner Semino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Stacy. I just wanted to share that I don't know if there's going to be any benefit to this, but the Saguache County Commissioners is where Kit Carson is located in Saguache County, and they the 3 of them have been talking amongst each other about the possibility of them doing another public meeting and seeing if another sort of recommendation could come forth from the BOCC. But I guess I'll leave it to you and our staff and the National Board of Geographic Names about whether it's just the process too late. We're going to go with these names that we have, or if a new county commissioner recommendation might be worthwhile. And if anybody sort of knows, I could get back to them. But they do plan to try to do a new process with the multitude of potential names they have.
Thanks for that update, Commissioner Semino. I guess to respond to, it's not too late. At any point in time, anyone can submit a renaming proposal. So it wouldn't be too late on this. I did find it helpful to be able to sit in and receive sort of prior notice to be able to sit in on, county commission meetings and other renaming proposals, just so we can learn about that pretty quickly, since sometimes it can take a while to get video transcripts up onto their websites. So I'd be happy to reach out to the Saguache County Commission and sort of get a better idea on what they're planning when they're planning to review this.
Yes, Stacy, if you could do that, ma'am, I think it'd be really appreciated. I think they'd appreciate you reaching out to them, and that'd be really helpful. So thank you.
Director Mock?
Thank you. Yeah, Stacy, I think this is similar to our Mount Blue Sky proposals, where we had more come in kind of after the initial fact, and we allowed or gave time for the county to conduct a process. I mean, obviously that's local input is one of those things that we seek and would certainly appreciate. And I think that there's probably a good example for them to follow from Clear Creek County in terms of considering multiple proposals and working through those. Remind me, maybe you remember, or Commissioner Chimino, I think in this case, the Swatch Board originally declined to take a position, I think, correct? Or am I misremembering that wrong?
I would agree. I do not remember in all of our reviews so far them having a voice, and it may have been formally declined to take action, but they had one or two new commissioners elected in 2022, so that original declination might have been with the old board.
So I have on our working summaries that the county took no position on this matter, at least for Preston Peak.
Susan, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for taking my comment. I'm working with the town of Crestone and submitting the name on Mount Crestone. And I have reached out here to Liza Mayer, one of our county commissioners. And I just want to say that I think that the town has its own history with the name Crestone on this peak. But I can't speak officially for the town, but I think that the town and local people would be very interested and even honored to work with some of the tribal people on what names could be important to them. And so we recognize that there is a longer history than what we have here. So I just wanted to say that, we definitely would be open here with a collaboration with the youth to the other tribal people in Colorado regarding the naming. So I just wanted to put that out there. I want to thank you for all your consideration.
Are there any additional questions for Ms. Coleman? I guess not. And I want to acknowledge the arrival of our two senators on the committee. So welcome Senator Perry, Senator Will, and Senator Exum. So we're glad you can make it tonight. Thank you for attending. And so, okay, so Stacy, do you have any more updates?
The only other updates I have are to the upcoming proposals that'll be formally introduced later, and I'm happy to provide a brief update on tribal engagement at that time.
Sounds great. All right, then let's move on to one of those introductions. Okay, so actually agenda item number 7 is hopefully our final consideration of USBGN case 5557. And that is the case of, as we said, Negro draw to Robeson draw. And I think we're at a point where we can vote. And so why don't I call for a motion to vote on this one, to recommend the name change of Negro draw to Robeson draw. Do I have a vote? Yes, Director Monk.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Ms. Coleman, did we have a tribal update in terms of input on this one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to note that again. In terms of an update on tribal input, the Southern Ute Indian Tribe, representatives for the Southern Ute Indian Tribe recently provided a formal letter indicating that they have no objection to this renaming proposal, and that in the past, the Ute Mountain Ute tribe has not indicated any specific, I guess, interest in providing formal feedback on this particular proposal. And at the March 8th scoping meeting earlier this month, again, they didn't provide any formal feedback, but indicated they just wanted to be updated on, sort of the process piece and where it goes.
Commissioner Chimino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, can you please reference your agenda one more time for that case number, please?
It is case number 5557.
I move that for case number 5557, the Colorado Board of Geographic Names recommends to the governor that the currently named feature be renamed to Robeson Draw.
Great, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Way? Second. Any discussion?
I just to make sure that there's clarity on the motion because of how much we've gone back and forth between Robeson and Robinson. The recommendation is to change the name from Negro Draw to Robeson Draw. Is that the final name that we all have arrived at through this process?
Yes.
Robison.
Right, Robeson. Perfect. That's correct. Thank you for that clarification. And so any other discussion? Then all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Great, the motion passes. So we have the formal recommendation to rename Negro Draw to Robeson Draw. And we'll take that to the governor. Thank you very much. It's a big accomplishment. All right, so our next agenda item number 8, then is a brand new case. The introduction of USBGN case 5468, which proposes to rename an unnamed feature in an unnamed feature in Clear Creek County to Square Top Creek. Is that correct? Yes, Square Top Creek. So just a little bit of information. This is an unnamed tributary of Duck Creek, which is a 1.4 mile long tributary. It's a stream that flows out of Square Top Lakes, down the slope of Square Top Mountain and into Duck Lake within the Pike and San Isabel National Forests. And just a note that Square Top Mountain, the Square Top Mountain name was made official in 1933 by the BGN due to the shape of the mountain. And USGS topographic maps have labeled Square Top Mountain since 1924 and Square Top Lakes since 1957. The proponent is Michele Painter, who submitted this proposal on November 13th, 2020. And just notably, the U.S. Forest Service is in support. So with that little bit of summary, I'll open up the floor for board comments or questions.
In reading this, it also says that Clear Creek County supports that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. Ms. Coleman?
I just wanted to add real quick on outreach concerning this particular new proposal that we're introducing tonight for Square Top Creek. The USBGN did initiate their outreach to all 574 federally recognized tribes for this particular proposal back in 2021, since it was submitted officially to the USBGN a while back. Therefore, their required 6-day response time has passed and no responses were received by any of the tribal nations that outreach was conducted with at the time. For CGNAB purposes, we also have formally initiated outreach on this particular proposal with the Ute Mountain Ute and Southern Ute Indian tribes. And that was first initiated last Friday. So
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about this case? Yes, Commissioner Chimino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, I was going to suggest this one seems fairly straightforward. However, the last thing that Stacy said was that you just initiated some outreach last week.
Yes.
I guess based on that, we should probably give a little more time. Let some feedback come back in. So I guess I recommend we could talk more about it if we have thoughts, some initial thoughts, but I recommend we definitely wait for 2 more months before we, maybe consider a motion.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, Director Mock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was gonna move that we calendar this for final consideration pending any input from the tribes at our July 2024 or later meeting.
Okay, so is that a motion, Director Mock, or are you just asking for a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I'm familiar with the area. It's got county U.S. Forest Service support. I think it is relatively straightforward, but recognizing that we are seeking input from the tribes, and given that sort of 120-day schedule, that would put us on the July or the next meeting thereafter for final consideration, depending on their input.
Great, thank you. Would anyone like to second that? So.
Second.
Okay, Senator Will, thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor? Say
Aye.
Hi.
All those opposed? The motion passes. And I'm also wondering if we should invite the proponent, so Michele Painter, to the next meeting as well for any input. Might be a good idea.
Madam Chair, we did invite her, and she may be online now. I can't really tell. There's a phone number that I don't know, but all of the proponents were invited to this meeting.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you very much. All right. Let's move on to our next case, which is actually two cases. The introduce BGN cases, US BGN cases 5638 and 5639, which are proposals to name unnamed features to Plunge Point and Plunge Mesa. And the proponent who filed this proposal is Mr. Glenn Hayes, who is a business owner in Palisade, Colorado. And just a little bit of background on these cases. Plunge Mesa and Plunge Point are proposed names for a ridge and a high point at its northwestern end in Mesa County. The ridge is a thin extension off the northwestern slope of Grand Mesa. These proposed names reference the newly completed Palisade Plunge mountain bike and hiking trail, which pass about a mile southwest of the ridge. The proponent writes, quote, "The name Plunge will be forever associated with Palisade, as the already named Plunge Trail is opening this day. Plunge Point is the most prominent to the town and the area of Palisade." Also, notably, the proponent is an owner of Plunge Photo, LLC in Palisade, which was started in December of 2020. His business card shows an image of the point at the end of the ridge. The proponent reports that Palisade Town Council has expressed support for the names. Yes, and so I'll open up for board comment or questions.
I'm on the line. My name is Glenn Hayes. I'm the proponent.
Oh, great, Mr. Hayes, welcome.
Yes. I no longer have my photo business. I only started it because of the pandemic, in case jobs got really scarce, but that kind of faded away. So there's no conflict there.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Do you have anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I'm retired other than that.
Okay.
I'm a native of Colorado, and I've lived out here in Palisade for just about 40 years.
Great. Well, thank you for filing the proposal. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Where's the Mesa County Commissioners on it?
So this is
Say that again.
Mesa County
I'm sorry.
Commissioners?
Senator Will, this is Anna Stout, Mayor of Grand Junction. This has not yet made its way through any of the legal processes here in Mesa County, with the exception, based on the packet, with the exception of the Palisade Town Council. It is not technically lands within the town of Palisade's jurisdiction. So this really is this would be more appropriate for Mesa County Commissioners to weigh in on. City of Grand Junction will likely not weigh in because, again, we're tangentially associated with it. We certainly benefit from the tourism that the Palisade Plunge brings to the area from a mountain biking perspective. We can certainly take this to Mesa County and to anyone else regionally that needs to opine on this. Frankly, I don't expect there will be any version of opposition to this. This is a pretty non-controversial proposal. It's not renaming something, it's naming something that's not already named. It's a feature that we worked multiple agencies to bring together the Palisade Plunge. In fact, Grand Junction owns a lot of the land the plunge crisscrossed, and had to work a lot with the leasees of our land from a ranching perspective to mitigate some of the issues between the ranching community and the mountain biking community to make the plunge a reality. It's actually a really good example of bringing people together and collaborating to make an outdoor recreation feature work in the middle of rural lands. All of that said, I don't anticipate that there will be any sort of opposition from Mesa County Commissioners. Happy to be the one to take it to them and to request their consideration of it, and to express the commission's or the advisory board's request for their input, and to carry Mr. Hayes's request forward to them.
Thank you.
Ms. Runyon.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to give a quick update. Admittedly, it's been a while. We did reach out to Mesa County when we received the proposal. The letter was sent, I see, back in July of 2021 with a follow-up in October 2021. We did receive a response in October from then. I don't know, maybe missed out. Maybe if Chair Janet Rowland, if she's still the chair of the county commissioners.
She's still a commissioner. She's no longer the chair, though.
Okay, thanks. So she wrote back, and I'll quote, "We believe this should receive community input before we act, if we take a position at all. What is your plan for public input?" So we responded that that's not something the USBGN has the resources to do. We directed her to the CGNAB and to Mr. Hayes, basically saying that we look to the county commissioners to solicit local opinion, and if they want to conduct community input, obviously we encourage that. But again, we don't have the resources to do that from the federal level. So admittedly, that's been at least 2.5 years now. So certainly, yeah, if you'd be willing to follow up and refresh your memory, perhaps it's been a while, and let them know it's still pending, and community input obviously is always welcome. So thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit of background there.
I'm very happy to follow up with them and ask what they have in mind in terms of community input, if that's something that would be sufficient to be posted, on a virtual message board, if that's something that we needed to do through if they want to do some kind of a community meeting to see if they have the resources to host that, or what their intentions are for some kind of community out or input and outreach. Happy to follow up and see, A, what does that look like, and B, is that still the expectation, given the fact that from 2021 to today, 2/3 of the commission, I believe, looks different.
Fair enough, yeah.
At least 1/3, but I suspect it's 2/3 at this point.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Ms. Coleman.
Mayor Stout, it's up to you on how you want to handle this, but we can also, CGNAB staff can also assist with that outreach. And we could CC you on that to facilitate that. I mean, I just want to make sure I know that you're very busy as well, and happy to help to initiate that outreach to Mesa County again, and sort of explore, sort of these possibilities in terms of additional public outreach.
I really appreciate that and will lean heavily on you. I have a standing meeting. Janet Rowland and I have had a standing meeting since she was elected to this role, which was a re-election from many, many years ago. So I've had monthly meetings with her since then. I can add this to our regular agenda and then follow up with you about what more is needed for her, if that makes the most sense, just to sort of maximize the efficiency of the time that we're already spending.
That sounds great. Yes, just want to offer as much support as we can provide to you as well.
Thank you.
That sounds wonderful.
And I will take advantage of that. Thank you.
And Chair Gonzalez, if you don't mind, by way of another quick update just on the tribal outreach, similar to the last proposal with Square Top, for both of these proposals, Plunge Point and Plunge Mesa, the USBGN, also conducted that outreach to the 574 federally recognized tribes back in 2021. That 60-day response period expired and no responses were received. And we have conducted the CGNA specific outreach that was initiated last Friday, March 22nd. So.
Thank you for that update. That's great. Ms. Runyon.
Thank you again. I just wanted to give one other addition to that. The Mesa and the Point are both on Bureau of Land Management land, and we did reach out around about the same time to our BLM representative on the USBGN, and he had not gotten a local input yet. I did nudge him when I got word that it would be on today's agenda. He responded that he apologized that it had fallen through the cracks and he would follow up with a local office. So, Mayor Stout, I don't know exactly who BLM would be the regional office, but given they're right there in Grand Junction, perhaps if there is a community outreach, some sort of meeting or discussion, maybe someone from the BLM might be willing to attend. I could put out some feelers and see if that might be something they would like to do and might be of interest to you. Would that help, given that they are so close?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, John Gale is our regional person here, and John and I are supposed to be meeting soon anyways. So I think throw this on that agenda as well. And by soon, I mean definitely before the next one of these meetings, but I think in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thanks for the name too, John Gale. I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Director Mock.
Yeah, and I would also add that the BLM State Director, Doug Vilsack, we've got a special relationship. He used to work for the Department of Natural Resources. So we're happy to reach out to him as well. Mayor Stout, unless you want to include him on those communications, if you know him.
If you have, I'm supposed to be meeting with John just about some just other things that are not specific to this. So if you have contact information that you can give me for Doug, I'm happy to include him, but my meeting will just be with John, and I don't imagine that Doug will be part of that, or that he would have reason to be here for that meeting with the two of us.
Perfect, will do.
Excellent. All of that is really helpful as we get going on this case. Anything else before we move on to the next one? Well, I just want to thank Mr. Hayes for being present on this call. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. All right, that brings us to agenda item number 10, which is introducing USBGN case number 6159, page 74 of your packet. And this is naming an unnamed feature, or recommending the naming of an unnamed feature to Spring Creek Reservoir. And that is in Larimer County. And the proponent is Mr. Ed Pyronen. I'm not sure I pronounced that name correctly, but Ed Pyronen. The feature is a 3.4 acre reservoir along Spring Creek and within a residential area in Fort Collins in Larimer County. The reservoir is labeled as pond on OpenStreetMaps, which also labels the pond to the west as Hill Pond. Neither of these names are recorded in GNIS. The proponent, who is a local resident, states that the name would resolve confusion for the feature's identity. Some call it Hill Pond, which is actually a pond that already exists to the west. And the two HOAs to the north and south of the reservoir own the land with water rights owned by Arthur Ditch Company. Spring Creek Reservoir, he argues, is a neutral name that succinctly identifies this feature. The USBGN has reached out to the city of Fort Collins, who actually is not in support of the proposal, because they argue that the HOAs should chime in. Their voice should be heard in this. And secondly, they don't support this because they say the reservoir, or labeling it a reservoir, is not an accurate label for this body of water. USBGN has also reached out to Larimer County, to the 574 federally recognized tribes, and the Arthur Ditch Company. And so I'll open this one up for comment. Yes, Ms. Coleman.
Just to be more specific, the USBGN initiated outreach to the 574 federally recognized tribes on February 5th. So that 60-day response time doesn't expire until April 8th. And similar to the other proposals, the CGNAB initiated outreach to the Ute Mountain Ute and Southern Ute Indian tribes on Friday, March 22nd. Thank you. And I believe the proponent's here today too.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks for that, Ms. Coleman. Commissioner Chimino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It seems we ought to be able to clear up authoritatively whether or not this body is a reservoir. Director Mock has had some water experience. I've had a lot of water experience too, but is there a state board that determines that, Tim? Does anybody know? Senator Will might know. Who decides a reservoir or not?
That's a good question. I think when it's designed and at the time that it's named, it sort of gets that moniker. It's interesting though. I might agree with the city's characterization of it. Reservoirs do tend to be man-made and hold water for various for water storage or for various reasons, whether that is flood control or drinking water or even irrigation for ag. But so I don't know exactly. I could imagine like we've had in other cases, we get some of these that are named something that might not completely match with sort of everyday terminology that we've kind of come to use, and that could be something as well. But not having kind of looked into this further, that might be a question to ask the proponent when the Madam Chair calls on them.
I agree, Tim. I mean, but if there's a water right associated with it, it'll already have a name. So you're right, Rich. So I'm not familiar with this reservoir, but I'm sure there's a water right associated.
Ms. Runyon?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to just comment from the USBGN's perspective. When we classify water bodies in the Geographic Names Information System, the GNIS database. We really only have two options. One is lake, one is reservoir. And I suppose, talking to folks in Colorado, and I'm sitting here in DC, we look at it more as a very literal definition. If it's natural, it's a lake. If it's man-made or somehow impounded, it's got a dam, it's a reservoir. It's as simple as that. Now, that doesn't mean that it couldn't be named lake. There are many, many reservoirs that carry the name lake, but we would still classify it as a reservoir because it's man-made. And looking at the imagery, I just hopped onto Google Maps here, and it's pretty obvious that there is some sort of berm or dam or some impoundment at the eastern end of it. And it wasn't there on earlier topographic maps, which tells us it's man-made. So therefore, for us, it's a reservoir. But again, that doesn't preclude it from getting the name lake if that's more favorable to the city. But maybe the proponent, if he's here, probably has more thoughts on that than I do. So again, that's just a federal definition. If it's man-made, it's a reservoir.
Thank you,
So
Jenny.
thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jenny, for that. And Mr. Pyronen, please tell me.
Yeah,
how
it's
to say your name.
it's Paranen actually, but that's
Pyronen.
fine. Thank you very much to clear that little message up. Yeah, I mean, I looked at it. It's got a dam, as was mentioned on the east end. It was put into place in the early 80s to hold back the water of Spring Creek Reservoir, to allocate the water to Arthur Ditch, to the ditch companies out there, as well as a piece of flood control. Spring Creek is infamous. Matter of fact, about a half mile down the way is where we had this flood in '97. So it is, in fact, I mean, I don't know what else to call it. So it's Spring Creek. It is the creek, and it has been the water's been withheld there. It's behind my home, and again, it was a discussion between the two HOAs. So I'm surprised reservoir is the only name I could think of what it would be. So if there's something the city would like to have it preferred named, lake, pothole, it's as long as we get a name, because the thing is, it has been confusing in working with the city because it does not have a name right now. That's what I'm trying to simply resolve.
Great, that's good information. Thank you. Any other discussion, questions for the proponents? And it looks like we'll continue our various outreach. Oh, Director Mock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I find it sort of curious or interesting that the city of Fort Collins does not support the proposed name. One, because of reservoir, and we've walked through that, but then two, that it's owned by the homeowners and that they feel their voices should be represented in the naming process, which might imply that that's sort of a light statement of opposition that they might come off of, given some input from the homeowners association. So Mr. Peronin, I might ask you if you've had any outreach or correspondence with the homeowners association.
Well, I mean, I've talked to my homeowners association. I didn't the other, and I'm happy to go over to Wallenberg. We've met with them in the past on things. I'm happy. I hadn't even, I mean, I mentioned it to my HOA president that I had sent this post sending it. So that's, I more or less, I thought it was a fairly non-trivial task, but I'm happy to execute reaching out to the two HOAs and see if we can get some sort of solution there, resolution there. And then if I knew who the contact was within the city, that would be helpful to gain support, because that sounds like the three entities that really have voiced, or actually the city's the one that's voiced a concern thus far, but I'd like to be able to approach them too.
Yeah, actually, I mean, that'd be really desirable if you would meet, especially if it is in some sort of state of private ownership, or owned by the homeowners association. Obviously, we're going to be interested in getting their input. So if that's something that you as the proponent are willing to initiate and have a conversation, I think that would be a fantastic and appropriate way to proceed.
Okay, if I may ask them, what are the steps? I mean, once I've done that, do I just send back to the board, or what are my next steps?
Yes, you can send something back to the board. We can get you an email in the chat there to whom to send it to. And then if the board itself would actually communicate in writing, either the board president, for example, that the matter was discussed and that they support that and would mind sending an email, as simple an email or a letter. And you might then want to address that to the city of Fort Collins. It's Heather Young, who is the senior community engagement manager. And this is in the packet that we have. So I think we can, I'll put in the chat for you that email address.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Runyon.
Thank you again. I always have one more thought always. I will say that, over the years I've seen, there's been some maybe a negative perception of the word reservoir, especially if it's in an area of recreation or, in a relatively urban area. Lake is always viewed as much more, to be honest, attractive, I guess. Reservoir seems very clinical. And we have had a few cases over the years where communities have asked to just change a name from reservoir to lake. To be honest, to increase the marketing and attraction and recreation. So that may be one of the city's concerns, possibly not so much against it being named and being a reservoir, but the fact that maybe the name reservoir itself. So perhaps if the proponent were to talk to the city community engagement officer, perhaps you could ask if lake might be more acceptable. It certainly would be okay with us, but only you as the proponent could amend your proposal. So if you wanted to discuss the idea of lake rather than reservoir, that might be, or even pond, or it was a little bigger than a pond. But just a thought that reservoir might be, just doesn't come across as quite as appealing to a lot of people. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Runyon. Any other conversation about this case? Great, then I think we have our steps forward. Great, and so we'll talk about that at our next meeting. And with that, I'll open up the floor for public comment.
Yeah, Dr. Gonzalez, this is John Carson.
Hi, John.
I just had a question.
Sure.
And I realized that Kit Carson Mountain wasn't on your agenda today, but when I send material in, does it go to the entire board?
Yes, it does.
Okay, because I've sent in 2 different things, and looking at your board packets on the computer machine, I haven't seen them yet. Is that because sounded earlier that y'all were going to take this up at a later meeting, or what?
Yes, we just had updates today. And before I answer definitively, I think I'll ask either Director Mock or Ms. Abad to address Mr. Carson's question.
Yeah, Ms. Abad can expand on my answer here, but it's not unlikely that we compile these things, but until we really get into the larger debate and provide those updates as they come in, as we begin considering these proposals, because we still have a moving target here, we're experiencing some additional proposals coming in. we might not have updated the full packet, but when the board does officially kind of take this up, we should have those packets and the information shared out. And Ms. Abad also sends around to the board supplemental information as well that the board receives. Johnny, do you have any update to that?
Yeah, so it's not part of this meeting's packet because we're not discussing that agenda item. The board did receive your 2 letters last week, I believe, and it is part of the Kit Carson Mountain renaming proposal. So once we get that on our agenda to review and consider, then your letters will be part of the board packet. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I was just wondering because I know because I sent them in certified, and I knew you got one on the 28th of December, and then one just after this last meeting
Right.
on the 2nd, and I hadn't seen where those were shared, and that was a concern, of course. That also includes any other materials that have been sent to you?
Yes, there were
Okay.
2 other letters that were shared with the board along with yours last week.
Oh, okay. Because I know there's one headed your way from the University of Alaska History Department. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carson, for your questions. Ms. Runyon.
Yes, thank you again. Mr. Carson, I wanted to just take the opportunity to also let you know that the US BGN has also received your letters, and I apologize that I've not acknowledged them directly, but please be assured that anything you mail to the US BGN, whether we're just copied on your letters to the Colorado board or directly to us, they are all in our packet as well. And the US BGN members will also see the communication. So apologies in advance for not acknowledging everything, but be assured that if you've mailed it, then we have received it. And we do have both the letters and the other accompanying comments that came in more recently. So thank you for that. I hope it's okay if I confirm those in this forum.
Oh, yeah. No,
So
I
thank you.
appreciate it. I mean, my whole goal here, you guys have been talking about peak versus mountain versus summits and the geography of the place, and I understand that's the title of your groups, but it comes down to understanding what the man was really doing and what he didn't do, and you'll see that in that material that's been sent out, I believe. And you know, there's personal reasons, of course, family reasons, and you know, when you try to defame my family name, I'm going to have to do whatever I can to prove that in error. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Carson. I really appreciate your interest and the concern with the case and you're sharing your documents with us. It's important.
You bet.
Any other public comment for tonight? Well, then it seems like we have moved to the end of our agenda. So our next meeting, Johnny, do we have a date or Commissioner Chimino?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Yeah, I thought of something during the meeting, and so my apologies to Tim and Jackie. But as other statutory organizations, OEDIT and DOLA, I don't know if your organizations would support travel to Missouri in preparing for the COGNA conference coming up. It's not a lot, it's a little airplane, it's a hotel, some per diem. But if you want to go back to your organizations, I don't want to just hit up DNR only. I'll hit up everybody that's involved. So that's all. I'm truly done now. Thank you.
I will make sure that that Mrs. Stroder is well informed.
And I'll talk to my president too, Regis. So, all right, Ms. Hoover? Beth, do you want to unmute yourself? Let's see, I see Beth Hoover. I see your hand up. Just want to give you a chance to speak. Maybe she stepped away from her computer. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Johnny. And you want to give us the date for our next meeting, Johnny?
Johnny, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
I know. Darn it. I guess we could just start the bidding process, right? So we'll skip April and go into mid or late May. So Mondays seem to work for most people. Late May, I believe that the legislature will be over, so we might have some more flexibility there. So how about May 20th?
This is Mayor
I'm-
Stout. That doesn't work for me, but that doesn't mean that we can't do it if it works for everybody else.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Catherine. It doesn't work for me either, but as Ms. Stout said,
Okay. How about May 27th?
Is that Memorial Day?
Oh, yeah, never mind. Can't do that one.
If we're looking at Mondays in May, there are no other Mondays that work for me. Again, I'm not critical to this process if we have critical mass without me, but Mondays would not work if the 27th works for me because there is nothing else scheduled because nobody else is meeting. But otherwise, we have council workshops on the other Mondays, opposite of the ones that you already.
Okay.
What about with the legislature being out, returning to looking at the Thursday dates? Johnny, is there a particular Thursday that might work for you?
Thursdays work for me. So 16, 23, 30.
16 and 30 work the best on my end. The 23rd is just up in the air whether something's going to schedule or not. It very well may not.
Okay.
May 30th works for me. May 30th? Going.
I won't be here. I'll be in Indonesia, but you guys should meet without me.
William, you take the best trips.
Right.
I wasn't available that evening, but I can find someone else in my office to provide AG support.
Dr. Wei, we can calculate the time change for you and you can join us at like 2 o'clock in the morning. We don't have a problem with that.
I appreciate your thoughtfulness. Thank you.
Madam Chair, did you say the 23rd of
No,
May? Is that-
we're thinking the 30th of May. Is that right, Johnny? Okay, so far, yeah, you're muted.
Yeah, so far. Or that
Okay.
we could do the Wednesday, the 29th, if that works better.
Wednesday, the 29th.
Or Dr. Wei, when are you?
Yeah, when are you leaving, William?
Let's see. I'll be gone for for a while. I will be coming back, quite frankly, on June 17th. So I'll be gone.
When do you leave, William?
Oh, when do I leave? Let's see. I leave on May 25th, the Sunday.
Okay.
What about the 16th to allow Dr. Way to participate? And not be about to turn around 2 days later and leave.
Yeah, that works.
I would have to send in I could send in a proxy. We have a new flight going to Ireland, Aer Lingus. So the inaugural flight's coming back on the 17th.
No, that feels like something the whole board should be on for some reason.
Yeah.
Seems reasonable.
I could send somebody in to represent our office if that works, if we want to do it on that, the 16th.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I have a quick side question for probably Tim and Johnny. This is mostly out of my own self-preservation. I feel like I haven't been on for long, but I also feel like we're probably coming up on a year. And if that's the case, I fear we're close to a regime change. Just kidding. I fear that my vice chairmanship is soon to convert to a chairmanship at some point, and I'm just kind of curious when that's happening.
It is Mayor Stout. It is.
Yeah, Mayor
very
Stout,
aware.
I had the same sense that you did, but I wasn't able to go back and figure out what the date of the transition was, but I think we're probably in there. So we'll definitely take a look at that and communicate with you and Dr. Gonzalez and the rest of the board and give them a heads up when that's approaching, if that's the May calendar.
Thank you. I just don't want to let the organization down or by the board down by not being prepared. I don't want to be flat-footed in responsibility that I've committed to. So let me know what's needed and by when, please.
Hey, Dr. Gonzalez has shown how to really run an efficient meeting, so we could keep her another month or so. And
the key is to skip parts of the Yeah, I think it's early summer-ish.
That's what I was thinking. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm not, supposed to be leading a meeting that I'm unprepared for. So and I also want to make sure that we have the opportunity to appropriately thank you for your service as the chair. So mostly just keeping us organized, but more than that, I don't want to trip on my feet and fall on my face right off the bat.
Well, the team, Johnny and Stacy and Jenny and Tim, they'll make sure that you're prepared. All right, so it looks like we're shooting for May 30th for our next meeting.
May
16th.
Oh,
May
16th.
16th.
I'm sorry. There we go. That's one example of keeping you on your toes. Okay, thank you. And yes,
5 o'clock?
Dr. Way.
Oh, is 5 o'clock, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sure.
May 16th, Thursday.
Right. That sounds like a great plan. And with that, we are finished for the night. So would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Second,
1, 2, 3, nut it or all it.
call it. It's a group second. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Good seeing you all tonight. Have a great
Good night.
rest of the spring.
thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good
Take
evening.
care.